So now I want to get into political parties. But in keeping with my area of research and my emphasis, I'm going to be talking about political parties in terms of how we process information and how they help us be better citizens. So the general point is that one of the things that political parties do is they make it easier for some citizens, not everybody, but for some citizens to vote, right? So I want to explain why, but I've got to proceed through this like sort of step by step. Elections create an incentive for parties to build a plurality of support. Now, if you're unfamiliar with that word plurality, let me explain. Oftentimes when we talk about elections, we'll talk about majority rules, right? If you need a majority to win, that means you need 50% of the vote plus one. You need more than half, right? Plurality simply means that you need more votes than anybody else. So for example, you can have an election, and if one candidate gets 40% of the vote, and another candidate gets 30% of the vote, and another one gets 20%, and another gets 10%, nobody's won a majority. But the candidate who got 40% of the vote won a plurality of the vote. They got more votes than anyone else. And in elections, oftentimes there are multiple parties that are running, even though Democrats and Republicans realistically are the only ones who have a chance of winning. If you voted before, you've seen it on the ballot. There's going to be the Reform Party. There's the Peace and Freedom Party. There are all these different parties. And so it's not uncommon for one party, a candidate, to get a plurality but not a majority. This is particularly true in primary elections when you have candidates from the same party running against one another. So if you have 4 Democrats running against one another in a primary, the winner is going to be in certain primaries. The winner is going to be the one who gets the most votes. But it could be that they've just got 30%, the other one got 28, then 25, and so on. So elections create an incentive for parties to build a plurality, to get more votes than anybody else. Well, how do you do that? Parties want to support issues that attract a plurality of voters. But we oftentimes think about the issues that a party supports as somehow being interconnected, connected in terms of ideology, right? As I've said before, we need to keep party identification and ideology separate. The reality is that when people join parties, it's oftentimes people with different interests who join the coalition, a group, members of the party. And so let me explain what I mean. First, by explaining an exercise that I used to do with my in-person classes. On the day of this lecture, I would show up and I would have printed out like those little tags that you put on my name is so-and-so, and you stick on your blouse or you stick on your shirt. Well, I had a bunch of those printed out. And when the class came in, when everybody was there, I said, okay, you guys, let's leave. I'll lock the door, leave your stuff here, come with me. And we would walk downstairs to this area near Aliso Hall. And I would say, okay, I want everybody to take one sticker and put it on your blouse or put it on your shirt. And don't look at it, just take it and stick it on. And so they were obviously confused about what was going on, which was fun all by itself. And so everybody would take one. And on each one of them, what I had was I'd put a particular issue and I said, whichever sticker you got, that's your issue. That's the thing that motivates you, right? That's the thing that you want to get accomplished. Some people got issues that matched their own, and then some people got issues that didn't match their own. And then I made a few of them that were like really weird. So one of them just said nuke Iran, right? One of them said abolish the penny, right? But most of the other ones were like, pro gun control, opposition to gun control, um, concerned about the environment, concerned about business, things like that. And so here's what I told them. So we have a group of like 35 students standing around. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do, because today we're talking about political parties. I want you guys to look at each other's issues and form political parties based on the issues. And I would say you have 5 minutes to do it. And so students would walk around and they would look at each other's issues and see who they wanted to be in their party. And I always made a point of saying, don't just be, with your friends. I want it to be based on the issues that they have on their stickers. And so commonly what would happen is that I would look around at the end of the election, and there'd be like 4 or 5 parties. And I would go around and I would ask each of them, what does your party believe in? And there might be a party where they're concerned about the environment. There's another party that there's concern about business. There's another party that's concerned about freedoms, like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, things like that. But there'd be like usually 4 or 5 groups. And the Nuke Iran party, nobody wanted Nuke Iran in their party. And the Abolish the Penny, oftentimes they were on their own too, because people were like, we don't want our party to be doing this. Especially the Nuke Iran people. And after they formed their groups and I asked each one of them, what does your party stand for? Then I would say, oh, you guys, man, I forgot. I forgot there's an important part of this exercise. We have to do this whole thing over. I was lying. I did this on purpose. I said, we're going to do this again. I want you guys to form parties, but the party that has the most members is going to get 2 extra points on the next exam. So you get 2 points if you're in the larger party. And I would say, okay, go. And usually it wound up that as we got closer to the end of the election, right, there were an equal number. And I always told them, by the way, there have to be at least 2 parties. You can't all be like the same party. And so they would form groups and more or less they would be equal in size. And then as we got down to the election, to like the end of the election, I would say, okay, you guys got 1 more minute. And now students are looking over and they're counting. They're counting how many people are in that party, how many people are in that party. And I start counting down, 30, 29, 28. And you can see people counting, 15, 14. And as I got down to like 5, 4, as people were counting, all of a sudden what would happen, people in the smaller group would just run over to the larger group. They just like bailed on their friends. They bailed. It didn't matter. They just wanted to get the extra 2 points on the exam. And it didn't always happen this way, but most of the time it happened this way. And so once it was over, right, it was obvious which group was the largest group. And so I would ask the smaller group, like, what does your party believe in? And generally it was like a group of people, issues that were consistent. Like it'd be a more conservative group or a more liberal group. It was a group that was consistent. And then I would go and they would tell me what their party believed in. And then I would go over to the bigger party, the one that won, and I would say, what does your party believe in? And people would make up some like BS answers, our party believes in freedom and America. I'm like, no, really, you guys, what does your party believe in? And when we go through this a few times until somebody finally said the truth, what does your party believe in? And they would say 2 extra points on the exam, which was the truth. That's why that party formed the way it did. They wanted the extra points on the exam, and it was better for them to work together to get those 2 extra points. And so they did. The Nuke Iran people, they're like, come on over, join us. Abandon the penny, come on over. They were fine with everybody. They wanted to win the election because they wanted those 2 points. And what I would tell them is I would say, look, you guys, I know this was kind of like a joking around kind of thing, but this isn't very different than the way parties actually form. At UCLA, when I was working on my PhD, they referred to these as coalitions of convenience. Political parties were coalitions of convenience, a group of people who are working together because it's convenient for them to do so in order to get what they want. And so what I'm going to do is talk to you about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as coalitions of convenience. And I'll explain that in the next video.